I want to say something you probably won't like to hear, but it's the most important reminder I can give you. This world, in its very essence, is not designed to help you understand it. Quite the contrary. It is filled with immense systemic forces that are trying their very best to turn you into a muddle-headed fool. What do you see when you open your phone every day? You see millions of people scrambling to sell you simplified, foolish ideologies that conform to your pre-existing biases. You see companies using the most sophisticated algorithms to exploit every psychological weakness you've inherited from ancient times, all to get you to buy things you don't need. You see so-called experts and politicians with their nice hair and pleasant voices, feeding you chauffeur knowledge that they themselves don't even believe. The entire modern civilization, to some extent, is a massive, efficient factory for manufacturing cognitive dissonance. If you don't realize this, you've already lost at the starting line. The rules and frameworks you've learned in law school, that so-called legal mind, will only accelerate this process of becoming stupider if you use it in the wrong way. It teaches you to look at interconnected things in isolation, while the real world is a seamless web woven together from all disciplines and all forces. Therefore, the most important task in your life is not to learn how to play the crazy games within a crazy system. It's to build an internal, powerful thinking system that cannot be easily destroyed by external noise. This is what I've been doing my entire life. There are no shortcuts. The first cornerstone of this system. It's incredibly simple. So simple it sounds like a platitude. But the vast majority of people will never manage it in their entire lives. Is this: the most reliable way to get what you want is to make yourself deserving of it. That sounds like some tired old moral lecture, doesn't it? But it's not. It is a cold, cosmic level engineering principle. You want someone's trust. First, you must become a trustworthy person. You want financial freedom. First, you must build a character and rationality that are worthy of wealth. You want to find true love. First, you must become a person worth loving. Too many people have the order of life completely backward. They spend their days scheming how to obtain what they want through clever words, networking, and speculation. This is an extremely stupid and very crowded path you are calculating how to get. Your mind is filled with noise and short-term desires. But when you focus all your attention on how to deserve, your mind is left with only one thing: improving yourself. Just think about it. Between these two models, which one has a higher probability of success in the long run? The answer is self-evident. I've spent my life observing successful people and families. I've watched Asian families, and their rate of ascent in American society is astonishing. Why? Because deep in their culture, Confucius planted the idea of filial piety. This isn't just about respecting your parents. Its essence is a legacy of responsibility, the culture of deserving. You must be worthy of your ancestors' expectations, worthy of your family's honor. This kind of internal drive is far more powerful than any external incentive. So forget all that secrets to success nonsense. Carve the word deserve into your brain. Every night before you go to sleep, ask yourself, today, am I more deserving of the life I want than I was yesterday? That cornerstone in place, let's talk about the scaffolding for building this mental edifice. This is the lattice work of interdisciplinary mental models that I keep talking about. That law school professor joked that the legal mind is about looking at one factor while ignoring all others. He was being sarcastic. But in reality, that's how 99% of people think. Economists only use economic models. Engineers only use engineering models. And marketing people only talk about user psychology. They're like a man with a hammer to whom every problem looks like a nail. This isn't just stupid, it's a catastrophe. The real world is multidimensional. A business decision might be the result of multiple forces acting in concert. Mathematics, probability, psychology, the psychology of human misjudgment, physics breakpoints, and critical mass, the biology, competition, and adaptation in evolution, and so on. From one dimension, what you're seeing isn't reality. It's a distorted image in a funhouse mirror. I realized very early on that you don't need to be an expert in every field. You just need to master the few dozen big, fundamental, and enduring ideas from each important discipline. Things like compound interest and permutations from math, equilibrium and action-reaction from physics, natural selection from biology, then those 20-odd standard cognitive biases from psychology. Store these models in your brain and form an interconnected latticework. When you encounter a problem, run it through this latticework. You will be astonished at how many seemingly unsolvable problems suddenly become clear. Why has Warren Buffett been able to make high-quality decisions year after year for decades? Because he's not investing. He's applying that latticework of mental models in his head to understand the fundamental nature of business. He spends half his waking hours reading. He's not looking at stock tickers. He's absorbing knowledge from every discipline to reinforce his latticework. The walking, constantly upgrading learning machine. Now, this method has a huge side effect that I must warn you about. When you truly master it, you will find that in many situations, you can see to the heart of a problem much faster than the experts with fancier titles and higher status. This is a very, very dangerous position to be in. I suffered from this a great deal when I was young. I'm not very good at hiding my thoughts, especially when I'm certain the other person is an idiot. This made me enemies in many places. My old colleague Chuck was smarter than me. His boss told him, "Your job, first and foremost, is to make the client feel like he's the smartest person in the room. Second, it's to make your senior partner feel like he's the second smartest. Only after you've done those two things can you show how smart you are." That's the wisdom for surviving in a large organization. I didn't do it that way. I chose another path. You have to choose for yourselves. In any case, having the ability to see through a problem is always better than not having it. The cornerstone of deserving and the scaffolding of mental models. Next, we need an operating system. I call this operating system inversion. That story about the farmer. All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. It's not a joke. It's the key to unlocking wisdom. Almost everyone is accustomed to thinking forwards. How can I succeed? How can I be happy? How can I help India? The smarter people turn the question around first. What will guarantee failure? What will make life miserable? How could I completely ruin India? You see, when you think backward, the right answers just float to the surface. You want a miserable life? Simple. Be unreliable. Be lazy. Be envious. Be full of self-pity and borrow against your future. If you do all of those things, I guarantee your life will be a living hell. So all you have to do is take that list and one by one, eliminate those things from your life. Let's practice this method. What will utterly destroy an otherwise brilliant mind? The first and foremost, strong ideology. The moment you raise a flag and declare yourself a believer in some ism, you have effectively handed your brain over to someone else. You are no longer seeking truth. You are only seeking evidence that supports your position. Your cognition will shrink at an alarming rate until it becomes a cabbage. The screaming religious fanatics and political commentators on television are living examples. They have a rule for myself. If I can't state my opponent's argument better than they can, I'm not entitled to have an opinion. It sounds harsh, but it's my vaccine against the virus of ideology. I suggest you try it too. In today's online world, full of extremist rhetoric, this rule could save your life. The second thing that destroys a brain is a self-serving bias from psychology. That we are hardwired to think that what is good for me is what is right and what is good. Mozart, a musical genius, was destitute his whole life. Why? Because he always felt he had the right to spend more money than he earned. He succumbed to this most primitive bias. If Mozart couldn't escape it, do you think you're an exception? This bias will distort every judgment you make. You must consciously and brutally fight against it. Learn to tolerate the self-serving bias in others, because that's human nature, and you can't change it. Have a zero-tolerance policy for it in yourself. This leads to the story of the general counsel at Salomon Brothers. He had morals, he had legal knowledge, but he destroyed himself and his CEO because he appealed to reason and morality when he was dealing with a CEO who was overwhelmed with 1,000 other things. What should he have done? He should have appealed to the CEO's interest. He should have said, "Boss, if this isn't handled, it will destroy your reputation, bring you to ruin, and make you lose everything you have. My plan is here to save you." See, that is the wisdom of Benjamin Franklin. You want to persuade someone who is driven by self-serving bias. Frame your argument as the most beneficial choice for them. This isn't cynicism, it's profound pragmatism. The third thing that will destroy you is perverse incentives and a bad working environment. The system rewards you for doing stupid or unethical things. Get out of it fast. Those law firms that demand 2,400 billable hours a year are using money to incentivize you to live a distorted, anti-human life. The money you get is compensation for giving up your health, your family, and your independent thought. It's a bad trade. More importantly, never work for someone you don't respect and wouldn't want to become. The power of authority is immense, that we unconsciously start to imitate the person who signs our paychecks. If you work for a fool, over time, you will start to think like a fool. It's a slow, imperceptible poisoning. My strategy when I was young was simple. Find the people I admire most and do whatever it takes to work for them. If I couldn't, I'd work for myself. All right, we've discussed the cornerstone, the scaffolding, and the operating system. Now finally, let's talk about the fuel and maintenance for this thinking machine. The fuel is lifelong learning. You've heard this until you're sick of it, but I have to say it again. The knowledge you have when you leave this school will last you 5 or 10 years at most. If you stop learning, your career is over. The reason Berkshire Hathaway has been able to endure is because Warren and I have never stopped learning. The methods we use to make money have to be updated every decade. You must become a learning machine that go to bed every night a little wiser than you were when you woke up. It doesn't sound hard, but if you can keep it up for 50 years, the compounding effect will put you ahead of almost everyone. The maintenance is about cultivating good mental habits. The people first be like Darwin. Be extremely consciously aware of seeking out evidence that could disprove your most cherished beliefs. It's incredibly painful when you're in love with an idea, but it's the only way to remain objective. The second, use checklists. A pilot uses a checklist before takeoff. A surgeon uses one before an operation. Why? The pressure, the human brain forgets critical steps. The complexity of decisions in investing and in life is no less than that of flying a plane. Turn those mental models in your head into a checklist that you review over and over. The third, have a strong interest. I've found that I can't be the best at something I'm not intensely interested in. I can be good out of a sense of duty, but excellence requires the drive of passion. So do whatever you can to work in a field that you are genuinely interested in. Fourth, be diligent. My two early partners had a wonderfully simple agreement. If we screw up, we'll just work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, until we get it right. With that kind of spirit, it's hard not to succeed. Finally, I want to talk to you about how to face the inevitable blows of life. In your lives, you will surely encounter heavy, unfair blows, sickness, betrayal, failure. They will come. Some people will be crushed by them and fall into endless self-pity. Self-pity is a highly corrosive acid that does nothing for you except make you more miserable. A friend of mine has a funny card. Your story is very moving. I've never heard of anyone with worse luck than you. Whenever you find yourself wallowing in self-pity, just send yourself one of those cards and go study Epictetus. He was a slave, physically disabled, and penniless. He considered himself favored by the gods because he saw every misfortune as an opportunity to exercise his character. The trouble is the whetstone that makes you stronger. My whole life, I've been anticipating trouble. As the poem says, of troubles I opined. My opinion was stark. So when troubles came, I was ready in the dark. This attitude has not made me unhappy. On the contrary, it has given me inner peace and strength. I learned this from my grandfather, Judge Munger, as well. He used a third of his net worth to save his nephew's failed bank because he had been frugal his whole life and was prepared. He was able to step up when his family needed him. The frugality is a servant of responsibility. Everything I've said ultimately is about building a seamless, non-bureaucratic web of trust. This is more important than any law, any procedure. The operating room at the Mayo Clinic runs on trust between the doctors, not on cumbersome protocols. If your marriage requires a 47-page prenuptial agreement to survive, I suggest you don't get married at all. In your legal careers, you will deal with procedures, but never become a slave to them. Your ultimate goal should be to build trust with your clients, with your colleagues, with your family, and with the world. All right, the old man's ramblings should come to an end. These principles, to me, have been priceless. They have allowed me to live a life far better than I deserve. As Valiant for Truth said in the Pilgrim's Progress, my sword I give to him that shall succeed me. Now it's in your hands. Good luck to you.